Hello and welcome to Breaking Views. I'm Biren and our focus this evening on the latest from Manipur. We'll also discuss if banning of certain apps is better than a total internet shutdown in crisis situations like the one we've seen in Manipur right now. Well, but our main focus remains on the latest that's coming out of Manipur. The top story breaking this evening is that the man who allegedly made that horrendous video of a gang rape in Manipur has been arrested, according to officials. An FIR has also been filed. Government sources are telling NDTV that the case will be referred to the CBI for investigations. That's a very important point, and that the trial in the case could take place outside of the state of Manipur. That's again a very important point. Bringing that breaking news to us is Neeta Sharma of NDTV. Neeta, fill us in on the details first that you're hearing at the moment from your sources.
Veera, this is a confidence building measure as far as the center is concerned. They are trying to tell each community in Manipur that they have been acting fairly and impartially. So that is what this case moving out from Manipur states, because there were allegations against Manipur police also that they were acting slow, despite the fact that Manipur police claims that they have arrested almost 8 to 9 people. But in that horrific video, we had seen hundreds of people, abusing those 2 young women. Obviously there were allegations that they were going slow. One of them who has been arrested is a juvenile also. But still, now that the case has been given to CBI, that will give some kind of a reassurance to the communities that they have been acting impartially. Moreover, due to this case, when this video came out, we saw that in Parliament also there has been a log jam for last 1 week or so, since the time the Parliament has started functioning, because the opposition parties have been demanding that the Prime Minister should speak out on this issue. So obviously the government is trying to, one by one address the issue. That's what we are learning from center, from government sources. They are reaching out to people at various levels, at civil society level, and also both the communities leaders are also speaking to them. Even off back channel talks are taking place. What we are learning, that as far as these civil society groups are concerned, almost 17 peace committees are working through back channels, trying to restore law and order in Manipur. As far as the Manipur police is concerned, they are saying more than 15,000 people have been detained. So they are saying that the law and order situation, as compared to what it was in May, because we had seen this violent cycle twice, it went really high, then it subsided, but now they are saying things are under control. Veera?
Right, that's an important point that you make there. Of course, there are critical steps that need to be taken, not just reaching out. That's enough. Saurabh Gupta, who was there in Manipur, has also joined us. Meanwhile, fresh firing reported from Kangwai this morning on the Churachandpur-Bishnupur border in Manipur, an area that has seen constant violence since the ethnic conflict erupted. The injured have been admitted at the district hospital at Churachandpur. The area where the firing is reported from is located on the fringes of the Imphal Valley and the hills of Manipur, where the tribal communities live. Those reports coming in there. Saurabh Gupta, of course, was there in Manipur till yesterday. He's now back in Kolkata. This is an area that you were very close to, right, Saurabh? As well as, what are you picking up? What is your sense of this story that Neeta is breaking at the moment, saying that the case could possibly be handed over to the CBI and the trial could take place outside of Manipur?
It's a very important step, and it's perhaps a very good confidence building measure, and that's simply because that there is a lot of distrust between the 2 communities that are engaged in the ethnic violence, and because the police stations are in an area where these cases are being investigated, which is of one community, and the victims or the survivors are from another community, there is always that question mark and mistrust over the police investigations. This is not to raise question marks on the investigation itself, but there have always been these concerns that whether there would be a free and fair investigation. So in that context, if it's handed over to a central agency like the CBI, in this case, at least it works as a confidence building measure and ensures that there will be more trust in the investigation from the side of the complainants, the victims, the survivors. Now, as we speak about this investigation, there is also the other part, that is the violence that has been unfolding in Manipur, and that hasn't ceased at all. In fact, where we were yesterday, in an area close by from there, there has been firing since this morning. The area is, like you mentioned, Kangwai, And again, it is in those fringe areas between the Imphal Valley and the Manipur Hills. And today, those who have been injured, some of them from the tribal community have been taken to the orthopedic ward of the Churachandpur Medical College. And also what we know is that there are fears of casualties, though that hasn't been confirmed yet in this firing, but there are fears, and that is why, of course, there is still a lot of tension in those fringe areas. And that is a key aspect of this Manipur story that we've been covering, because it's been nearly 3 months. The violence doesn't seem to be, coming down, and that's a concern for everyone involved, including the government and everyone else.
Right, you're making a very important point there, Saurabh, giving us the ground realities there. Neeta Sharma and Saurabh Gupta, please stay with us. We also have another report filed by our other colleague who's tracking Manipur closely, Ratnadeep Chaudhary. As the violence continues in Manipur, the Nagaland police, we believe, have arrested a police inspector accused of stealing ammunition from Nagaland's police armory and selling it to those in Manipur. While the free availability of weapons has been a dangerous element in this ethnic strife, the supply of such weapons by an official from a neighbouring state is a matter of grave concern. Listen to this report.
This man, an inspector in the Nagaland police, is at the center of investigation by the police, who believe he stole and sold ammunition to people in Manipur. Police sources have told NDTV that 6 people, including the inspector, 4 civilians, including 2 from Manipur, and a local gun runner, have been arrested. They are accused of stealing thousands of rounds of ammunition to be used in INSAS automatic rifles and in self-loading rifles. The ammunition was being stolen from a central store in Chumukedima. The police inspector, identified as Michael Yangthang, was allegedly paid rupees 4.25 lakhs to acquire the ammunition.
The inspector was only acting in his personal capacity. We have not found any angle of any conspiracy or any wrongdoing by any other person. He was in charge of the store and he just stole the ammunition from there without anyone knowing it. And investigations revealed that he was actually being foolish and greedy because he had stolen the ammunition and he was planning to show it used against the next classification firing which would have taken place. It was an absolute foolish act on his part. After the Dimapur police swung into action, we were all supervising the operation. We monitored it very closely. We have established the money trail.
According to highly placed sources in Nagaland police, the cops got a tip-off and an operation was launched on 9th of July. The very next day, they were able to apprehend 2 people in a vehicle which had an Assam number plate and seize 2,500 rounds of live ammunitions of automatic weapons which were put in 3 different sacks. And then in further investigation, they were able to arrest a lady who was involved. She led them to a leader of a rebel group who further led them to a middleman, and finally they were able to arrest the main person, their very own, the inspector who was posted in the central armory and who has done the theft. This is not the first time that this has happened. 10 years back, an NDTV investigation revealed how parts of Nagaland, particularly Dimapur, had been a hub of illegal weapon sales and supplied across the northeast. In Guwahati, Ratnadeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
Right, that report that Ratnadeep was referring to, in his report, the investigation was conducted. Neeta Sharma was integral part of that. Neeta, the presence of arms is perhaps a distinct difference in this ethnic strife, unlike perhaps other clashes that we've seen in other parts of India. It's really the presence of arms that's very concerning. How disconcerting it is that an official could be supplying arms from a neighbouring state, from the police armory, to the people in Manipur.
See, Veera, we have seen 2-3 instances. In fact, 2-3 days back only, there was a press release by NIA in which they had arrested 3 people, which included a Myanmari national, in which they had clearly spelled out that how, weapons and ammunition was being procured from Guwahati and it was on its way to Myanmar. In fact, the NIA case which I am referring to was registered on 1st of May 2022. 200 boxes were found in which 223 sticks, ammunition and different kind of weapons were there. So this has been going on. The report that we just showed, which I had investigated 10 years back, that time also in Dimapur, how illegal weapons were being transformed to the legal weapons. The entire channel, the entire administration was at cahoots. That time also NIA investigated. So these investigations have been going on. If you speak to Assam Rifle, security officials, they also say that they have been on their job. At times they have been able to nab people. At times they have gone scot-free. So this case, these type of cases have been there in these areas, especially the National Highway 39, which joins from Assam. It runs from Assam to Myanmar. This is the route which is being used by these smugglers often. In fact, we've also come to know that from there's a place called Rauli. From there the weapons come to Mon, from Mon to Dimapur. So this pilferage has been going on. In fact, wherever in India, whenever a illegal weapon or illegal license have been found, its roots have always been traced back to Dimapur. So investigating agencies obviously are trying their best, but they say that they are short of manpower, and that is why each and every case they are not able to trace out. But this is a big national security concern for our country. Veera?
Right, important point that you make there, and fascinating details that you're sharing with us. As Saurabh was reporting yesterday, several gunshots, gunfire, all that primarily because of the abundant supply of weapons there. After the violence broke out in Manipur in May, the state has seen a virtual internet blackout. Just 2 days ago, Manipur government restored broadband services, but mobile internet data continues to remain suspended. It's not just Manipur. Nationally and globally, internet shutdowns are a huge curb on freedoms. According to a Surfshark report, globally there were 42 new state-sanctioned internet bans in the first half of 2023. Top 10 VPN says that till 6 June this year, there have been 65 internet shutdowns in 13 countries, costing over $1 billion. Ethiopia has been most affected nation, followed by India and then Pakistan. In the midst of all this, India's telecom regulator TRAI is exploring options to ban individual apps rather than issue blanket internet bans, as we've seen in several parts, including in Jammu and Kashmir. This is in keeping with recommendations by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on IT. TRAI, India's telecom regulator, has begun a consultative process on the key question of whether selective bans on apps is possible or not. Saurabh Gupta, of course, stays with us, but we also have with us joining this evening Jiten Jain, cybersecurity expert, Apar Gupta, lawyer and executive director, Internet Freedom Foundation, as well as Colonel KPM Das, cybersecurity expert here. But before I get to our experts on the analysis on what should be done and what's the possible way forward, Saurabh, since you were there in Manipur, and we've seen this in other parts like in Jammu and Kashmir or in other conflict areas, but since you've been there in Manipur, give us a sense of the human cost it takes to live without internet, the cost that people there are paying.
Well, there are two things, and these are two examples that were narrated to me by people who have suffered because of the internet ban. One is, of course, somebody who told me that, look, these days, even medical reports, etc., hospitals send on WhatsApp or they send on email. And someone who had gone to a hospital outside the state but was, and actually needed those reports to actually follow up on treatment was somebody who couldn't access the internet and therefore, had to go out back and, access the internet and, carry his treatment forward. He moved to a neighboring state. Secondly, this is the admission time, and a lot of students want to apply not only to foreign universities but to universities or colleges outside Manipur, and the admission process is nowadays largely online. So when you have an internet shutdown, there were a lot of students who were really suffering because a lot of the project work, a lot of the research that they have to do is all internet based. So if the access to internet is taken away in this digital age, it is across, demographics, across groups of populations that people suffer. And that is the question they've been asking. And a lot of people have been saying that, hospitals, banks, the basic facilities is something that we cannot access. So like a money transfer I cannot do because I don't have access to the internet. So these are questions that they had in their mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Imagine life without internet, especially at a time when we are discussing of internet as possibly a fundamental right itself. Apar Gupta, Do you think ban on apps rather than a total internet shutdown is one way forward? Because as we talk of freedoms, we can't forget the security concerns as well.
Thank you so much for having me here. So the way we are presuming that internet shutdowns will help any kind of law and order issue by itself is probabilistic, in the sense that it will prevent something from happening or a certain kind of flare up from happening. But I'd just like to challenge that basis a little. In your news report by itself, and several news channels, not only I'm individualizing to NDTV, one effective method of itself a news report like this, reference to the CBI reaching in a timely way, calming the situation, is through the internet. That is being prevented. And if you may think that this can be only on NDTV's website and wouldn't be there on a social media website, which is where people primarily access information these days, it would be completely against the kind of user behavior which is there. The presumption also which is there is actually contravening with the kind of evidence which is there. So there has been a study in 2018 in May by two researchers, which is titled as Sieges and Shutdowns. This is specific to Manipur, which is why I'm citing it. They say very clearly that internet shutdowns had direct and long-term negative impacts on the personal, professional, social, domestic, and financial lives on the respondents. Second, the second study, which is done much more nationally, is essentially pointing out that when you shut down the internet to quell unrest, rumors and disinformation is spreading much more rapidly. So it's counterintuitive. Even when you selectively
Hold your thought right there, Apar. Hold your thought
Yeah.
right there. I'm going to come back to you, Apar. Just hold your thought right there. I want to take that point quickly across to Colonel KPM Das. In a riot situation or in a clash situation or in a crisis situation, shutting down internet, how much does it actually impact in calming things down and stopping the spread of information, or does it allow wild rumors to go across? Does it curtail the ability of the government as well to put out right information to the people? Colonel Das.
Yes, so thanks for calling me here. First, I think the jury is still out, right? There's not enough research done. I know Apar gave some numbers, but there's not been a wide-scale research on this. That said, if you look at it, let me give you a technical perspective, which is where I come from, right? So fundamentally, what happens is, if you look left to right, you have the entire spectrum of tools that are available to the government, right? The easiest one is what we've been seeing till now, which is complete internet shutdowns. With India increasingly getting digital and Manipur having a demographic which is so young, completely, like oxygen, they live off social media. There is a challenge, and government is now trying to kind of architect a new kind of framework where there can be a very focused addressing of filtering and blocking certain applications, which largely contain content which they believe is counterproductive to law and order. So, and there are huge technical challenges there. So even if you intend to block, say, WhatsApp, as you know, is end-to-end encrypted. And even if you kind of block it, right, you can block through the DNS, through the content, you can block the IPs, right? And going further, I mean, if you have the resources, the government can, start doing deep packet inspections and so on. The kind of effort required to kind of, ban social media applications, which is part of the TRA report, part 2, talks about banning, asking for, that is, to my mind, a big challenge, right? It is so fundamental to your digital life.
Let me take that challenge across. Colonel Das, let me just take that challenge across to Jitin before I come back to Apar for another comment on this. Jitin, as you hear what both Apar and Colonel Das have said, what is your point of view on it? At the moment, I don't think internet shutdown is something that, the jury is still out on it. For the moment, what's under consideration is A, whether it is possible only to ban certain apps, and B, would that work better than an internet shutdown overall, which can debilitate people?
Well, it is practically and technically possible to ban a particular app, and it could be done at multiple levels. You could ask I mean, ISP to take it down through blocking IPs, DNS resolutions. You could even do deep packet inspection, filter certain ports. It is technically possible. You could also, ask the service provider itself, the app service provider, to block Indian IPs or IPs from a particular geography in that state. But the problem here in India, it is not implementable right now in the current scheme of things, because we do not have a DNS server for every state or a district. We have a telecom service provider which provides services in a circle of 4 or 5 states. So if they try to do something in one state, it might affect the whole 4 or 5 state circle. This is what happened in Kashmir, where we pitched to different government agency an idea that, instead of a complete internet shutdown, I think it would be in the national interest and the interest of all Kashmiri people if we could have a whitelisted version of internet where you could allow 100, 200 sites, for example, railways, telecom, medicine, flight bookings, news websites, and all those things, and news websites, so that Kashmiris could have at least a restricted access to internet for the daily, usage of things. But that was, I think, TSPs walked away because they said that we can't implement it because we do not have an infrastructure right now. I think what you did not have then, you could have built in, previous 3-4 years to overcome this problem. Right now, the problem with the government is that they do not have any other alternative except for a complete internet shutdown. They do not have the technology right now. There is a complete lack of will and intent on the part of telecom service provider because they're not willing to invest money in that thing. Also, point number 2, which is worth looking into. I think, just give me 30 seconds. See, internet shutdown are things of past. That tool of curbing violence has lost its utility, because even if you shut down internet today, your 80% banking transactions are right now online. You are hurting financial sector, you are hurting banking sector, you are hurting medtech, medical. And worse is security. People do not even get OTPs for their email logins or anything. So if you shut down internets, you are hurting patients, lab reports. Children are not able to do online schooling. So I think there is a human cost and there is an economic cost of internet shutdown. But I agree with both my friends. But we also have to remember, in certain emergency situations, the economic cost and the human cost cannot outdo the cost of lives. I think if it is done to save lives, maybe for 2 hours, I think it is acceptable. But what India has, we have become a joke. Even to prevent cheating in a medical exam, we shut down internet in 3 districts. I think we have to do away with this mentality.
You make a very important point. Let me take that very quickly to Apar. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We are running short of time as well. I want to take very quickly to Apar. Apar, I think, look, go ahead.
So very quickly, I take Colonel Das's point. The studies don't exist because the Parliamentary Committee's recommendation on December 1st, 2021 to the MHA and the DOT is to conduct a study. In its action taken report this year in February, it says, why don't you conduct a study? It again says, why are you resisting it? And the only recommendation out of the 7 recommendations taken by the DOT to the TRI under the terms of reference, and this is in the TRI consultation, is that can we shut down the internet in a limited manner? Second, the studies don't exist. The costs are certain. Why are we doing it? Why can't we have evidence-based data which actually helps us in policy formation? Secondly, the allow list approach, which is that you only give a bouquet of websites, does not work. There's actually technical analysis which has been done on the 153 websites which were made available to people in Jammu and Kashmir, because websites cross-integrate functions and elements from other websites.
Point taken.
These banking websites were not working actually.
Point taken.
So, yeah. So, and finally, I'd just like to end with one thing.
Point taken, Apar. Point taken. I think the point has been emphatically made. The point that you're making has emphatically been made.
So finally, what do we need? And that's what I would like to come to. Just 2 sentences. I would say that when you block a certain specific website, you need to do it transparently. It needs to have a very high bar. And we need to stop thinking about the internet as a mere utility. It's a lifeline today for people.
Okay, you make that point. Let me just get my final word from Colonel Das. I know it's a fascinating conversation. All of you have very deep insights into it, but the human cost is very important. Jitin also making a very important point. Colonel Das, is it the absence of technology? Is it the fear of the internet? What's causing this sudden run to a shutdown? And is that the only way out from a security point of view as well? And can't we, something we can't compromise on? Quick final thoughts on it.
Yeah, first, we are so far down the digitalization journey in India with Digital India, Secure India, Skill India, all of that stuff, that internet shutdown is now going to be a big, big issue. You're virtually taking away, the life support systems in states. So let me wargame a little bit. say this comes into place, what happens? You have a number of other options that the young people in Manipur can go through VPNs, use mesh networks. There are other methodologies by which they can still get access to some of these applications, right? The challenge, of course, would be, the internet is a very rare, very scarce resource, and it's going to be a big problem running their day-to-day digital applications through VPN all the time, 24/7.
Right.
So there's going to be a
Can I
challenge,
just
but
say a line? Just one line.
all three of you.
Just one line.
Right.
I think
I'm
TRA
really
is
sorry,
trying to solve-
Colonel
TRA
KPL
is
Das.
trying to solve a problem which is solved globally. I am sitting in Dubai here, WhatsApp calls, FaceTime calls, Facebook calls, everything is blocked. So it's a problem which is already solved. I think we are
Okay.
just
It's
making
in
the mockery of our own
not
selves.
India. Dubai is not a democracy.
We need a
No,
global
I'm saying-
solution.
I'm saying
We
it
need
is-
a
I'm
we
saying-
need a global
no, I'm
solution
saying
to
it is
come in. I'm
technically
really
possible.
sorry. I get the serious point that all three of you are making. I'm sorry, Jitin, but we're just completely out of time here. Apar, Jitin, as well as Colonel Das. It's a fascinating conversation, one that we'll keep focusing on, but very important points made by all three of you. That's all we have time for here. The news continues here on NDTV.